What's up, everybody? Welcome to BzG's official review for the DC movie Suicide Squad. My name is Barrett Courtney. I am your host reviewer today, and here join with me is special guest reviewer returning, Alyssa Shimoda. What's up, Alyssa? How you doing today?
Meow meow.
Yeah. So to give some context here for the people who might not know us, give some context about how we feel about DC and the DC movies. Alyssa, how do you feel about the DC movies so far? Have you ever watched Man of Steel?
No, I haven't. So I'm going to just straight up say I wouldn't consider myself like a DC fan.
No. You're definitely the Marvel person.
I have slowly come around to it because of The Flash, the CW's Flash with Grant Gustin, who I
love.
Yes. And now I am open to the DC world because of that.
You saw Batman v Superman, though.
I did see that with you.
Yeah. How'd you feel about that? You're like, whatever.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you anything about it now, and it's not been very long since I saw it, huh?
Yeah, that was... Well, it was March.
Batman was in it.
Yeah, Batman was in that movie.
Superman was in it.
Yeah, there you go.
Wonder Woman was in it.
Yes.
She's cool.
Can you name another character who was in that movie?
Lex Luthor.
There you go. All right. And to give some context, I love DC, specifically Batman. Batman is my favorite superhero of all time. And so far, the DC movie universe, I think, has been pretty awful. Sort of give some context here. Man of Steel, first time I saw it, fell asleep. And then the second time I watched it, literally the day before Batman v Superman came out, and I had like low expectations, like sort of just going into it like wanting to have fun, and it was somehow worse the second viewing. Then I saw Batman v Superman, and that's a garbage film. So going into this movie with so far the quality of DC movies and sort of how they showed like the Joker so far, I had little to no expectations with this movie, especially with the reviews coming out this last couple of days. It's right now at like a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, it's doing terribly right now on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's doing like decently on Metacritic, and that's the weird thing. Usually Metacritic scores are lower. So I don't know what's going on with the whole skew there. So before we get into it, I just want to say we're going to start off this review. If you've never watched a review of ours, we start off the first couple of minutes with some non-spoiler territories, general thoughts and feelings on the movie. So we'll just do that, and I'll let you know when we're going to go into full spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to see it, you can jump off this video when I say to, and then come back after you watch the movie and sort of get our full spoiler thoughts on the movie. But with no spoilers, I would say this movie is okay.
So I think touching on what you said about like why there's a discrepancy between Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic.
Yeah.
That one.
Yes. What was your point?
The point was that I think it might have to do with this. If you're not, because I'm not a fan of the comic books, or I shouldn't say that. Because I'm sure if I tried to, I could. Anyway,
you're just not
familiar with it, and so therefore I'm representing like the mainstream. As like a person with no background, I enjoyed it. Yeah. So I think maybe that's where the discrepancy is, right? Like people who maybe know more about the universe and know more about what it is in the comic books, like it
might be a little more upset by it.
Yeah, or be more critical versus like someone who has no background and someone who's just riding that superhero wave, because it's popular to be a fan of superheroes. It's like that's the cool new thing, and I think if you're riding that wave, this is a fun
forgettable experience.
New experience when you're on that wave already. So I think it's easy to roll with it and enjoy it, and I think that overall they do a good job of like hitting the formula, and the thing that makes it interesting is that they're hitting the formula, but instead of just being like your basic superhero formula,
you get the villain side.
You get the anti-hero. Yeah. Formula. Yes. So that makes it feel more exciting. That makes it feel more enjoyable. People like to resonate with the bad guy. People like to resonate with villains.
Yes.
And so I think this is a chance for like that crowd or like that part of you to be like, oh yeah, I like being bad, you know, as Hermione Granger says.
Yeah, and what is that? Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah. When she joins Dumbledore's army. Okay.
I would say my non-spoiler, it's an okay movie. I think the critic sort of backlash on it right now, I think is a little... I think it's due to how bad Batman v Superman was, that people are just going to, no matter what the quality is of a DC movie, it's always just going to get shit reviews now. Just because of sort of the universe and
because
the way...
they set themselves up almost...
They
did criticized.
Yeah, I would say that, but also
it took them so long to get into the swing of things that people are now going to come at them with an overly critical.
They're always going to be under the microscope.
Yeah, because they didn't nail it. The first
I said
couple
microscope, but I was holding like a magnifying glass. I was doing two different things at once.
It's because they didn't nail it, so now people don't trust them.
Yes.
And now they're going to have to work. They're going to have to do something like in order to get the trust so that people can come in and be excited. But for now, because they keep missing the mark, as a result, people are not excited. People are not trusting them. People are waiting for them to fail and probably looking for more ways to complain. And
I would say the ups of this movie, not giving like spoilery stuff, there are definitely times, especially it's challenging, right, to have you empathize with a villain and an anti-hero, and I think they do that well in some moments, and sort of character motivations are definitely well drawn out. The story makes sense, which is a huge critique of mine of Batman v Superman. A lot of that story makes absolutely no fucking sense. There are little like weird little plot holes every once in a while. I was like, okay, why did they let this happen, and yada yada yada. But at least they try to explain the story well, even though the story is a little basic. But also there are good character moments every once in a while, and there are fun moments, and even though it doesn't stand out due to almost sort of weirdly written dialogue and weirdly poor choice in editing style, and a lot of how the film was made, I think, really bogged the movie down a lot. And I also think a lot of the people who were in this movie had a hard time understanding what their characters were supposed to be doing in this movie. And I feel like that's why some actors and a couple actresses sort of fall short of what their characters are. So that's sort of my non-spoilery thoughts. If I say any more, I'm going to get into spoiler territory. So,
well, I say, that said, I liked Will Smith as Deadshot. I enjoyed his performance.
Yes.
I thought, I mean, knowing nothing about Deadshot.
Yep.
Like, so I can't say if he actually, I'm not going to say he nailed it because I don't know what Deadshot is supposed to be like. But I liked his character.
Yeah, I think Will Smith,
he did it so that I was invested in his character.
Will Smith always gives a really solid performance in every one of his movies.
I like Will Smith a lot.
He always chooses really mediocre movies to be in. So I think that's always it. And I'm not saying like
someone's gonna join us soon.
Suicide Squad is definitely like, I think it's a little above mediocre. I think it's an okay movie, and I think him and Margot Robbie definitely carry this film a lot in a lot of different ways.
Did. Yeah, I think they did.
And so,
and I even liked that they sort of set up a relationship between the two of them too.
Yes.
I liked that.
Before we move on.
Yeah, and I don't think that's spoilery, right? I can say that.
It's a little bit. It's a little bit. We're crossing the fence here. Because some people want to just go in blind, you know. So I would say before I give the official spoiler warning, it's an okay movie. If you're looking for a fun movie with no substance, and that's something I said in our Star Trek Beyond review, right? Is a lot of movies this summer have been coming out, and they're fun, but they don't have any substance. And Star Trek Beyond was fun and had substance and all that stuff. This is another summer popcorn flick that's fun, but carries no substance, and you'll forget about it in the next month. Not as great and memorable as I would say Captain America Civil War would be, not as terrible as Batman v Superman. So there you go, our non-spoilery thoughts. Now let's get full spoiler warning right here. So click off, go see the movie if you haven't yet, and then come back here and let's start this dialogue here. With spoilers, I just want to get right into it. I think Jared Leto is an awful Joker. I think he definitely showed off. He's not in this movie a lot, right? He is very much used in sort of the showing like the backstory of Harley and explaining where Harley has come from, and he's used a little bit in like the current story that's going on in the movie, right? Where they're going throughout the city and they've got the bomb in their necks, and he's gonna like try to help Harley get the bomb off and all this stuff, yada yada. But the way he acts makes me feel every time he's in a scene, I feel like he's acting. I see him acting. I see him being told to say lines. I see him trying so hard to try to nail this character, and he's just not. And in like juxtaposition to, I don't want to compare it to Heath Ledger, but in juxtaposition where Heath Ledger just was the Joker. When he's on screen, you don't see him acting, you see him as the Joker, right? And Leto was very much like, wow, you're, a teenager who goes to Hot Topic a lot and, quotes Heath Ledger lines all the time, like who looks up to Heath Ledger but can't be Heath Ledger. So I would say, but, we went to go see the movie with two good friends, Woody and Sean. And I think Sean made a good point of it might not be fair to judge Leto fully yet, just because this wasn't really a Joker movie. We didn't really get to see Joker and Batman together. And maybe in another movie with a better written script, maybe he can work a little better, but I feel like a lot of the dialogue choices for the Joker was really weird and really cringeworthy, and not in a good way. So that's sort of my take on the Joker. I sort of wanted to get into that because wearing a Joker shirt, Joker's he's my dude. He is the villain that I love to talk about and dive deep into the psyche of who that person is and all that stuff. So I just wanted to talk about that first. I know you absolutely hate the Joker. The first thing I'm going
to say is I have nothing to say about the Joker because I'm the exact opposite of Barrett. I do not enjoy the Joker. I don't like him at all. I don't want to know anything about him. So every scene that he was in, I literally covered my eyes because I understand who the Joker is.
We were having this discussion in the car.
I know, I'm trying to get it out. I know who he's supposed to be. I understand what kind of character he's supposed to be, and I don't like it. So I covered my eyes, assuming that all of my worst fears were going to come to light on screen. Like, that's who the Joker is to me. He does all the things that I do not like, all the things that make me want to cry. So every time he was on screen, I just covered my eyes. So I have nothing to add to this conversation about who the Joker is, except that now that I've seen the movie, I can see why. I understand, like, there were rumors that Jared Leto's upset by how much he's been cut from the movie.
Yeah,
I can understand why he would feel that way, and I appreciate that Sean brought up, like, maybe we shouldn't judge him, because if there's a lot of scenes that were cut, there might be a lot of pieces that are missing, so we're not seeing a full picture, and that's all I'm going to say, because I don't care.
Sort of what we were talking about in the car was, like, you were going into this movie expecting Ledger, where like every worst possible thing that could happen in a scene with the Joker would happen. And I think my main problem, like, you gave an example of like the scene where Common is weirdly in this movie and he has like all of these piercings, and you were imagining like Joker was gonna
I saw his piercings. I knew the Joker was going to use him as an example somehow and kill him. In the movie, he just shoots him. But in my head, I was like, oh my God, look at all of those piercings that you have all over your face. The Joker is literally going to rip every single one of those out, and I do not want to see it. I also do not want to hear you screaming. So I was literally in the theater like this. I was really close to like doing the la 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 la, so I wouldn't hear any of it. And that didn't happen. But that's not what happened. But that's what I expect when I see the Joker.
And that's what would have been cool, and that's what would have made this Joker stand out a little. It's something that you would have hated. I would have walked out. But it would have been something more closer to the Joker, right? Joker wouldn't just fucking shoot someone fucking whatever doozy, he would fucking like torture them and all of this shit. So that's why that's sort of my gripe with the Joker is he comes off as a basic ass villain.
He's just a villain.
He's just a basic ass villain. He's
one of those guys that kills people.
Yeah, and that's not what the Joker is. So that's
even I know that.
Anyway, let's move. Let's get past the Joker because he's barely in this movie. Let's get past it. So I think Suicide Squad, like the main team and like why they're sort of brought together is they sold it as best as they could, right? Of like Viola Davis's character, Amanda Waller, is like trying to get them together because
I get it though. It makes sense. And her whole spiel about like we need someone for when shit hits the fan. We need a team of people, and the great thing is if they fuck up, we'll just throw them under the bus because they're bad guys anyway. Like. That's not something I would do because I'm a Gryffindor, but someone like Amanda Waller would think that, and I can get where that's logical to her. And if you're just trying to get ahead and you're just trying to be successful, like that shit makes sense.
Yeah, it was believable enough for me to like sort of get through it. I would say the main problem with this movie is, and it's also a problem that DC has always had, and no one's really talked about it yet because Marvel is usually the big one of this, is their villains are always terrible. Zod was really bad. Lex Luthor made no sense. Sorceress? Enchantress? Whatever. That's how basic and like this is like a comic book villain that you would see in.
It was basic. As soon as they started it and they named the whole heart thing, I'm like, bitch is gonna get her heart.
Yep. And she like her brother literally looks like the villain from the first Thor movie. Fucking oven face. He's designed exactly like the fucking big metal dude from Thor, and it's like
he has more of a face than that guy did.
Yeah, I guess, but whatever. So it's just they had a very basic villain this time around, and it was not memorable. So like when you're in that like last like third act when like shit's hitting the fan and they have to like go after this villain, like it's not interesting enough for me to like be on the edge of my seat, right?
So I think
the one cool aspect of it though that I like, and I was talking to you guys about this after we left the theater, was Rick Flagg's sort of trying to come to terms with the whole like, I think I have to kill my girlfriend to save the world. I sort of really liked that, right? It's not like a whole like damsel in distress where he's got to like somehow kill the villain and save the girl. It's like the girl is the villain sort of in a way, and I sort of liked that. But I
don't think they did enough of it.
No, they didn't. Okay. Like they were hinting at it. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Let's get a little more of that. And then when he finally kills Enchantress, it like takes they lingered way too long. I was like, fuck, the girlfriend's gonna come back.
Been more powerful for them because they didn't develop it enough.
Yeah.
And they sort of developed in the very last. The third act, I guess, as you said. They really developed this whole, like, all of a sudden, actually, we're a family, we're a team, like, we're going to stick up for each other. Nowhere. It did come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But after they started using that, like, idea, I thought it would have been more powerful for him to, like, after she's like, you don't have the balls to do it, and he's just like, ugh. I thought it would have been powerful for, like, Deadshot to step in and be like, I got your back, bro. Because the whole time he was kind of trying to be like, you've got to do this. You've got to do this.
Yeah.
And, I thought it might have been powerful to hit home that message of like teamwork and friendship and family and stuff.
Which made no sense.
Deadshot had stepped in and done it for him and been like, "This is hard. Let's do it together," or something. And maybe that's too cheesy because it is Suicide Squad. I get it, but also him suddenly like having the balls to do it was kind of like out of left field because he didn't have that. There was no build up to it.
Yeah.
For me to be like, oh, you did it.
Yeah.
And maybe they were trying to go for like, wow, he suddenly got the courage to do it. But that's not how I felt. I just kind of was like.
They didn't focus on it enough.
Oh, you did do it. Okay.
I would also like the whole family dynamic was very forced. Like that's something you would see in Guardians and makes sense in Guardians. Because like the people in Guardians are shady people, but they're not like villains like Harley Quinn and Killer Croc and all this shit, right? So like that message of family in Guardians makes sense. but it was like they were trying to spoon feed it to us in like the last third act of Suicide Squad, where Diablo is like, "Yo, I lost one family. I'm not gonna lose another."
Well,
it was
okay,
like,
for him, I understood it though.
I don't understand that, because okay, you've been hanging out with these other villains for the last 5 hours, and now all of a sudden they're family.
What I mean is that I can understand why that character is looking for a family.
I can understand.
I don't think they did it well. I think it wasn't executed well. No. But if any character was going to spit that out in that moment, it was going to be Diablo.
It would be.
And that made sense to me. I just don't think they did that very well. And they could have.
They didn't earn that moment.
It was set up to have come out that way, but I don't think it was.
They had a lot of good ideas in this movie, but they just didn't know how to write them out.
Yeah, like, it was specifically. I was very upset. And I really felt for him when he revealed his whole family story, and then I was like, oh shit. It was like
they had like these really cool ideas, but then like when it came to like the climax of some of these ideas, they were just written really poorly. Like that line of like, I'm gonna lose, like, I lost another family, I'm not gonna lose another. Like that line itself sucked. That was a really bad line.
Suddenly it got very like, I don't know, just all of a sudden it was really like high emotional stakes when it hadn't been before. Yeah. So, I don't know.
The tone of this movie was definitely sort of all over the place. Yeah. But I do... And so the more that we think about it, the more I'm tearing this movie apart for myself. But...
I think he was the right character to say that. Like, if somebody else had said that, I would have been like, what? Bullshit. Yeah. But when he said, I was like, oh, that's because you lost your family, and that's really hard for you. That's really sad, and it affected you very deeply and changed who you were completely. So I can see why you're attached to these people. It just... is very sudden.
Yeah. I would say the one thing that Suicide Squad does that the other two DC movies haven't done, they were able to make a movie that was interesting enough to make you not want to fall asleep, which was Man of Steel, and make a story that was coherent enough to follow, which was Batman v Superman. Literally makes no sense. So I think Suicide Squad did have that, but it was such a simple story that I think that's why it doesn't stand out, and that's why it's not a higher quality movie.
I think what would have made it really interesting, and I did really like that when he mentioned this, like we were talking about how the villains were not executed very well, but then there were 2 points, right? That
villain was Waller.
Right.
Yeah.
And also that they are a whole team of villains. So how are you supposed to write one villain when you've got like 7 villains?
Exactly.
All doing villainy things at the same time.
It was definitely a tough script to tackle, and it's probably not the smartest thing that they made it the third movie in their universe.
I think if they had played with the idea of Waller a little more, that could have been really interesting. They didn't play to focus on her, like for us to think that Enchantress was the big villain, but for it to actually have been Amanda Waller might have been more
they hinted at it, right? But they didn't play it off enough. Like
they do.
The whole thing was like, even though shit was hitting the fan and Enchantress was like taking over the city, like she was turning people into like fucking people who could like actually shoot, and like she was making her own army. Even when that was happening, Waller was still like, oh, this shit's cool, right? Where she like she turned like an old grandma into like someone who can like fucking like shoot and listen and take orders and all of this stuff. So it seemed like her plan still was to try to get back Enchantress's heart to control this whole army that she created, and they never really got to that point, right? So it was like they could have built up Waller even more to make her a more centric like villain, but it fell short.
Yeah.
With that being said, there are a lot of we have a lot of gripes with this movie, right? Villain was very basic. I don't think they focused on the right person for the villain. Well, Joker sort of sucked.
For me, I wouldn't say that I have gripes. I think that it was a movie that was entertaining, but it didn't really make me think. So I'm only coming up with these ideas because you're talking to me about it. But if you had like just asked me what I thought and if I had any problems, I probably would have just been like,
it was okay. It
was all right. Yeah. It wasn't anything like, usually I can come out of a movie and be like, whoa, that was a really great theme. I really liked how they analyze, like I could analyze things.
And that was another thing
I can't really do that with Suicide Squad. And I think that just means that it was just a movie that was fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I didn't get, and I guess that's what you mean by there wasn't a lot of substance. Like, I normally like to be like, oh, look at that character, look how they develop, look at this plot, look at that, all of these parallels and things. And I didn't really have that experience in Suicide Squad. You were just kind of like along for the ride. And I guess there's nothing wrong. There's a place for that in the movie industry, so that's what this movie is, I think.
That's fine. And that was something else that we were talking about in the car. Yeah. There was no theme for this movie, so it's hard to really care about any of these characters when none of them personally have
I don't have a gripe because I wasn't, like, invested in, like, the quality of the movie after watching it. It was just, like, a movie.
Yeah. And then... But I think the good parts about this movie, there were a lot of, like, funny...
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Like, I was thinking that to myself, like, I'm enjoying this.
Yes. There was never a part in this movie where I was like, this is fucking awful. Like, I think that there were, like, as many good parts of the movie as there were bad parts. There's a lot of like the quippy like one-liners.
Yeah, I mean
that didn't feel too cheesy. There were a couple where I was like, all right.
Like sassy, sarcastic characters who quip all the time. So I was like, when I saw the trailers, I kept telling you like, I think I do want to see this movie because it looks like a bunch of people who are sassy, who are gonna be like Captain Boomerang throwing back beers all the time. I was like, yes, I love that.
Shout out to Jai Courtney. I think like. He was definitely not as prominent in this movie as I would have him to be. Mm-hmm. The team dynamic was definitely mainly just Harley and Deadshot, and then everybody else was sort of background. Even like Killer Croc was barely in the movie, especially Katana. I would say
that was your token Asian. And Killer Croc was your token Groot character who doesn't say much.
Katana literally served no purpose whatsoever in this movie. She was literally there to look badass, but she
diversity.
Yeah, but also she wasn't even badass in her own right. Like she looked cool a little bit.
I thought she looked cool.
She spoke real Japanese. I know.
I was saying that something. Whenever they put Japanese characters in, I'm like, are they gonna speak real Japanese?
I think that was too quiet for the mic.
Are they gonna speak real Japanese? And then I judge. And then if they do, then I get happy.
Yeah, and she apparently was. Yeah, and she served no real purpose in the movie.
I guess she didn't. She was kind of cool though.
She looked
That's the thing. At least the females in the movie are like cool.
Yeah. I think Margot Robbie really nailed the like Harley Quinn character. And I think
she and Deadshot. So Margot Robbie and Will Smith really like held the movie together.
Yeah, and like their sort of friendship dynamic is something I've never really seen.
I liked it though.
Yeah, it was really well played. And to go back to your thoughts about Deadshot from the beginning of the video where you're saying like you don't know if they portrayed him like true to the character or whatnot. This is actually more in depth with Deadshot than I've ever seen. Deadshot is usually like a one-note villain. From comics that I've read, I've never really seen anything.
He had a really great backstory that I was really invested in.
I think his
as I was telling you, if you throw some kind of father-daughter dynamic with like a young girl, and especially like piece of shit mom, and he loves his daughter so much. He loves his daughter so much. I am going to like that character. Yep. I'm going to like parents who are responsible. I mean, he's an assassin, but he obviously cares for her. He obviously is trying to take care of her. He sits down at the end of the movie and does math homework with her and isn't one of those moments. I appreciated that it wasn't one of those moments where the dad is like dopey math explanation. Like he was explaining the fucking geometry and the hypotenuse to her, and then he did it.
She started the metaphor with like the whole like assassination.
Which was sweet in the whole anti-hero kind of way. But I liked the character that he was. I liked the father that he was, and as a result, I liked him.
I think the one bad thing about Deadshot and his street clothes, his fucking hat that he wears looks dumb. He looks like he's in a Western movie or something. It's like, well, what are you doing?
I don't know.
Why are you wearing this hat?
Comic books?
No. So I really enjoyed Will Smith. I think he played the role really well,
that's gangsta.
and that's he also had like a lot of like really good like one-liners, something Will Smith does really well.
He does do that really well.
And that's something that it's sort of weird to process, right? Of like, Jared Leto was trying so hard to get into like the shoes of the Joker, where he was sending like fucking used condoms and like a fucking dead pig to Will Smith and all of this stuff, and Will Smith's literally like, dude, I'm just trying to act, like, and Will Smith was definitely way better of an actor in this movie than Leto was.
It was natural.
Yes.
He was meant to be Deadshot.
Yes, and I think Margot Robbie definitely nailed it as well. Even though we never really see Harleen Quinzel, we only see her in like 2 sort of scenes, and both of those scenes are already
she's already Harley Quinn.
Yeah, where she's already fallen in love with the Joker. You never really get to see like a little bit of the normal side, which I would have liked to see a little more of, just to see if Margot Robbie could have pulled that off as well. But I think she did Harley like justice. Even though like again, some of her stuff was weirdly scripted. Not all of her stuff like hit, and I think that's like to the fault of the trailers, of like when she breaks the glass and she steals the purse. It's like, we're bad guys. We're bad guys, and like no one laughed in the theater. Yeah. So.
That's not her fault. They used it a lot. No. I liked it when it came out in the trailers, but I've seen the trailer a lot, so I'm over it.
That's
now.
Marketing fault. Yeah. And so, I think this is a decent movie. I don't think it should be... I don't think it deserves to be panned. And I think, again, going back to the beginning, I think it's just because now hating DC movies is just the cool thing.
But I think regular people who don't have like the whole comic book background and who enjoy if you're riding the superhero movie wave, you should go see it because you'll probably like it. It's fun. You get the whole dynamic of like funny main characters, and you get some cool action sequences. Like,
there are some pretty decent.
When Diablo reveals what he can, everything that he does. So when he first reveals that he can like do the fire, because they wait a really long time for him to do it.
Yep.
And I guess it made me think, this is why I like X-Men movies, or like movies about people with powers, because like after seeing everyone just fight with like awesome fighting skills, which is cool, it was amazing to just see this guy be like,
yes,
and he just easily just like throws fire and fills an entire building with fire. And I was just like, this is why I like the X-Men, because they can amaze you with just like effortless just things that they can do, which is really cool. So it was amazing to finally see him do it.
I think there were like 3 standout like sequences in the movie. When they introduced Deadshot at the beginning, and he's like sitting on the rooftop, and he's talking
that
to the
was
guy.
A really cool shot.
That was
and
really
he throws
cool.
himself over the edge.
And then the first action scene where they're like on the street and they're like finding out like what the like, it's not really terrorists, it's like these fucking weird fucked up people. That was a really cool scene.
I
and
did
then also
really like
inside...
so in that scene. Before you move on to the next scene, I'm gonna hit this one. I did like for Deadshot, he gets up on the car and all the military guys are trying to get them, and he just goes he's
getting all of them,
and eventually they all just stop, and I was just like, Deadshot. Like that was a good sequence. Or I was just like, you show him.
And then the one inside the building before they get Amanda Waller, right? Of sort of like Harley going into the elevator and taking down. Like,
I did like that sequence because again, that was another like, she's powerful, she's a badass girl, and she's fighting, and she's taking these fucking creepy things that I hate. They're disgusting, and she was just like, creepy. They were like they're. I guess I have a thing with like textures. Like I do not like that their skin is constantly bubbling. It's disgusting to me.
It was literally
even from a distance, they're still bubbling, and I do not like that. Super heebie-jeebies, just disgusting. But she just like easily like they even surprise her, and she's like, oh, and then she kind of just is like, and she walks up the wall, and
cool. So that sequence was really cool. And then the third act, like the final fight scene was sort of whatever. I think they like sort of played it out way too long. Like they drew it out for a while.
I liked how you guys talked about how it was literally like a boss fight.
Yeah, it was
first
like
you have the mini boss, and then you have
the mini boss was like the brother,
and then the boss comes back with more swords.
Yeah, and
which I thought was funny. But yeah, and they do this whole sequence that is really drawn out. And
it was cool for a second.
It was cool for a little while. They should not have used slow-mo that much.
Yeah.
There was enough time for me to look over at Barrett, roll my eyes real dramatically, and look back, and the shot that I left was still happening. So I went back and rolled my eyes again.
Sort of final thoughts. What are your final thoughts?
I think I guess I did my final thoughts earlier. If you're riding that superhero wave, you'll like it. Go see it and enjoy yourself, and don't think about it too much.
My final thoughts would be it's sort of like most summer movies this year. It's fun, doesn't have any substance. So if you're looking to just see a fun movie, have a couple of laughs, see a couple of cool action sequences, fuck it. Why not go see it?
I don't want to be a downer. Like, I did enjoy it.
It's not a good movie. It's not a well-made.
That's fine. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a hater. I'm not into that. I enjoyed it. I really liked Will Smith and Margot Robbie. I really enjoyed their performances as Deadshot and Harley Quinn. I laughed a lot, I think.
Yeah.
I was having fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
It's not a good movie. It's definitely not made well. It's not paced well. It's not edited well. Jared Leto is awful. But there are still some fun moments. And again, if you're looking for a fun time this weekend and don't really give a shit about what you see, I think Suicide Squad is worth checking out.
Just go and have fun.
I think we're sort of not married to scores for BzG, but I give them anyway. I would give it a 6.5. I don't like
scores.
I know you don't, but it's, again, like I said at the very beginning of this review, it's okay. So
sorry, I just felt like I had to say that, because when you say something, I feel like I have to share my take on it. So when you give a score, I'm like, well, don't expect a score from me because I don't like it. For future reference.
Ladies and gentlemen, those were our thoughts for the DC movie Suicide Squad. What are your thoughts? You can leave your thoughts in the comments below, or you can tweet them at me, not at her, at me, at Benandlerchong on Twitter if you want to.
If you're already my friend, you can tweet at me.
Yeah, if you already follow us on Twitter, you can do that. But she's a private account. She doesn't want to share it to other people, so don't fucking do that shit. Tweet at me, at Benandlerchong. Have an open conversation dialogue about this. Is why I like doing this, so I can have fucking nerdy conversations with nerdy people all around the world. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for our Suicide Squad review. And until then, until next time, I guess. Stay nerdy.